Okay, good morning, listeners. You're listening to the Lament of Hope podcast. And I am here today with Shweta Subram. She's a Canadian playback singer, but she's also done a lot of independent music of her own. And then she's also, one of my favorite pieces that she's done is that she has co-authored a piece with the Piano Guys, um, which I really enjoy listening to. But Shweta, thank you so much for joining us. Can you kind of just to get started, just for people who are not really aware, because this was kind of new to me too. What does a playback singer exactly mean? How is that different than just an independent musician?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the concept of playback singing actually became extremely popular because of the movies, because of the Bollywood industry that we have in India, in Mumbai, in the city of Mumbai. Of course, it spreads across all of India, even in regional films and regional cinema, as we call it. They have different names. So, Bollywood is where it's predominantly the Hindi industry, but then there is Collywood, and then there is a bunch of other like Tamil industry, and there's Telugu, and there's so many different languages. India as a country has so many different languages. So what happens is the word playback is primarily in the movies. You'll see the actors and the actresses doing a song and dance sequence. Now, one would think that, like in the West, it's like like in the musicals, the actors are the ones that sing. They're so talented. They can sing, they can act, they can dance, they can do it all. But in Bollywood, it's not very much the case. We actually have separate singers who
Mm.
do this job. They go into the studios, they are recording the songs, which are predetermined by, there's a whole team, there's a team of music directors that sit with the producers of the film, the composers, they sit with the producers of the film. The producers of the film give them the storyline of what the movie is all about. The music directors then make the songs, they make the compositions, they present what's called scratches to the producers who go through all the different songs in the banks, and they're like, okay, we like it, we don't like this, and whichever song is finalized, then they basically go to the singers and ask them to come in, whether it's
Okay.
male or female, and then sing the song. And then the actors and actresses, when they're doing the shoot of the movie on location, they are pretty much lip syncing to the song. So that's why it's
Okay.
called playback. And so the actors and actresses that you see in the movies, in Bollywood movies, they're never the singers of the actual song. Of course, now the rules have changed a little bit because there are a few actors that have come that have now emerged in Bollywood that are also trying their hand in singing. But
Mm.
for the major part, what you hear is the actors are just acting it out. Literally, they're just lip syncing, and there's a team of singers that have recorded in the studio, which is why it's called playback singing.
How do you feel about that? Does that seem strange that because then that would mean for a lot of it you're not gonna like the names of the actors are gonna be what's prominent, not the people who sing. I mean, they're gonna have those names on there, but do you enjoy kind of being in the background when you sing, or has that been something to adjust to?
So being born and raised in the Indian culture, even though I've never lived in India, I've lived abroad for most of my life. You're exposed to the movies and the music from a very young age. So that seems really normal. That's been normalized to us. It's not anything unusual. Of course, I would say in the past, in the 70s, in the 60s, and the 70s, there was a time when the actors had gained more prominence, or they were the more dominant ones compared to the singers. But I've seen that change over the years, because what happens is when a movie is being released, when a Bollywood movie is ready to go and ready to be released, um, they basically promote the movies through the music. So
Yeah.
what happens is they have the promotions, they have the songs playing everywhere on TV, on radio, even on social media. You'll see like, oh, the song comes out first, like we're releasing the song, and watch out for the rest of the album, and then comes the movie. And thanks to social media, singers and music composers and directors have a strong presence on these channels. So they are able to market themselves, and the songs become the songs, and especially the songs really popular. What happens is people are very curious to know, oh, like, who's the singer behind the song. So they go on Spotify, they go on YouTube. So the
Mm.
singers obviously create their own fan base, but I understand where your question's coming from, because end of the day, the actors and the actresses are one that have a much larger, a more predominant fan base and a much stronger pull, a gravitational pull when it comes to getting the audiences into the theaters, is because they are the glamorous faces. People go to watch the movies for them. Um, but singers are definitely not, they're not really overshadowed as much as they used to be before. I think they're gaining a lot of prominence now because
Okay.
singers are also multi-talented. you know they also try their hand in like acting, and then they're also trying their hand in comedy, and they're trying to do so many different things. So they build a really good social media profile, and they really put themselves out there. So they're definitely building a space for themselves as well.
Do you when you see the difference between like Bollywood and Hollywood, what do you find that you like about the differences, or what are the things as well that you see that maybe you prefer one or the other?
No, I think they both are beautiful in their own way. I don't really have a preference of one over the other. What I like about Hollywood movies is like, their action sequences are really good. They really up the game when it comes to animation and action sequences. Bollywood's still getting there. They're definitely getting into animation a lot more, and because I know for a large part, and especially big banner movies, when they wanted their animation and action sequences, they used to always approach the Hollywood studios. The technicians there to get it done. You know, but
Mm.
now that's changing. In India, they have a good set of talent pool and technicians who are doing it. In terms of preference, no, because I just think Bollywood has it rides highly on emotional content. I
Yeah.
find that I cry a lot when I watch Bollywood movies versus when I watch a Hollywood movie. I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, but I really find that because uh, the way our culture is, it's a sort of family, and there's joint families and extended families living together under one roof. So sometimes these big banner movies, they really work on those kind of concepts and stories, you know, and they show love, and then they show separation, and they show the person going back to and falling in love again with the same person. So it's riding high in emotions, and uh, I think that's where Bollywood is slightly different compared to Hollywood. And the other thing I would say is Bollywood movies are long. It's like 3.5 hours sometimes, and I'm just like, oh my god, like this is super long. I know when I make a commitment to a friend, when I go to watch a Hollywood movie, I'm like, listen, I'll be out in 2 hours. But when I go for a Bollywood movie, I'm like, listen, I'll call you when I'm done. Because it's probably going to take about 3 hours or more. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Bollywood film?
Um, I do have a few, but the one that really touched my heart was a movie called Tare Zameen Par. It was a really beautiful movie on children, and one of the finest actors of our country, Amir Khan, was the mastermind behind that movie. And I hear he's coming back with another. I don't know if it's a sequel or what it is, but he has mentioned that it's gonna. That movie made people cry, and he said that the follow up is gonna make people laugh. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's hard to pick a favorite movie because we have a few actors that are um, extremely popular amongst the masses. One of them is Shah Rukh Khan, one of them is Amir Khan, one of them is Amitabh Bachchan, and they all have made us laugh, cry, dance, sing. So I have a few movies in my kitty, as I may call it. But yeah, Tari Zameen Par is something that I watched recently. I watched, I think, for the 10th time recently, and every time I watch it, it makes me cry.
As a singer, like, is there something, do you have a goal that you really would like to achieve in your career that you haven't yet, or something you want to stretch yourself in that the opportunity just hasn't arisen?
Um, I think I would like to do a lot more of independent music, a fine balance of independent music and playback singing. Like I find that uh, you know, I started off my like when I got into music, the idea was to really capture playback music, playback singing. But then I realized that the drawback for me was I don't live in Mumbai. And one of the things that is very important if you want to get into playback singing is you got to shift base. You got to make Mumbai your home city. You know.
Okay.
That being said, I'm lucky for the few opportunities that I got to sing in movies, despite not living in India, because thanks to social media, thanks to YouTube, thanks to Facebook and Instagram, my voice was discovered by a few different music directors, and they contacted me. Despite us being in different parts of the world, I recorded my vocals thanks to technology, and I sent it across. But I feel like I would really like to do a lot more playback singing, because what happens is, like I said, Bollywood movies has a massive reach. So when they
Yeah.
promote the Bollywood, they promote it via the music. The actors, even you find that even in their marketing tours or promotional tours, you find that the actors and actresses, go to all these different cities, and the first thing they do is they start dancing to the song that's in the movie, and that's how they get the audience to really,
Okay.
to jump into to kind of connect with the movie. And because of that, the song becomes popular, and the singer can really capitalize on that. You know, so I think the amount of people that you can reach to via singing for a Bollywood movie is much more. And that's why I
Mm.
personally feel I would like to do a lot more Bollywood movies. I mean, that's always been my dream and goal. So I would love to do more of that.
I know you were mentioning that you traveled a lot as a kid.
Hmm.
What was your childhood like? Did you travel a lot because your family was musicians as well, or?
No, so I lived in Dubai. I was born and raised here actually, and my parents just love traveling. I'm the only child. I don't have any siblings. So basically, my parents, what I liked about them was that they they didn't just believe in going to school and learning what's in, and like grasping what's in the textbooks, or just like memorizing what's in the books. For them, experience was all about travel and adventures and meeting new people, socializing, and that was a big part of my upbringing. And I think that's why my parents said to me, "Listen, every summer, literally before my school vacation started, I remember in the month of June, May, June, my parents would say, we have 2 months of summer break. Which country in the world do you want to go to? Pick a country on the map and let's just go
Oh,
there.
wow.
I was fortunate. I think I was one of the few blessed kids, because and I would just say, oh, let's go to Singapore, and we would go to Singapore, we would go to Hong Kong, we would go to Australia. I went to the US, I went to Japan. So I think my parents loved traveling too, and that was their definition of me learning of what's happening in the world, and just honing me as an individual, actually, just through
Hmm.
experiences. Yeah.
Did you have a country? Like, what is there a country that like stood out to you as a kid that really you had a fond memory of, or just a vivid memory that you remember?
Yeah, I think the country that really stood out for me was Australia, only because that was the first trip my father didn't join us because he had work, and he couldn't leave his commitments behind. There were some deadlines that he had to meet. And I remember that my mom's, I was a little upset initially, thinking that this vacation's not going to happen. But my mom, she really surprised me. She said to me, "Doesn't matter." Even my father said, "It doesn't matter. Why don't the two of you go and make it a girls' trip?" And I remember, like, I was 14, and I said, "Really? Like, are we seriously going to do this?" And my mom said, "Yeah, let's do it." And we actually backpacked a lot of Australia. You know,
Oh, wow.
we had, yeah, it was really cute actually, because I never thought I'd do such a trip with my mom so early on in my life. But and especially because I do have family in Australia as well. I have some cousins and I have an aunt and uncle there. So we stayed with them for a couple of days. But besides that, my mom and I were like, let's just go. So we went to Sydney, we went to Melbourne, we went to Wollongong, we went to so many different places, and it became like a 2 month journey. I mean, I thought it was going to be like a really quick trip, 10 days, 12 days and back. But we were enjoying ourselves so much. So I think that really stood out to me because it was an experience of a lifetime that I never thought I was gonna have.
Yeah.
But apart from that, like in terms of cultural experiences, of course, going to Southeast Asia was quite different, because India was, like uh, part of our travels every year because we have family there. So India had to happen no matter what. So you do India and then you pick a different country. So visiting my cousins and uncles and aunts, and because there's so many cultures and like religious festivals, cultural festivals that happen every year in India. So that's the time we used to go there, so we could celebrate like Diwali with our family, or Holi with our family. But apart from that, like going to like Hong Kong or Singapore or Bangkok, I mean, it's really different out there. Thailand is so different. So I remember like we went for a show where there were like snakes, and they would put it on your neck and say, oh, you're playing with the snake. And I'm like, this is also weird for me. Of course, I was scared as a child, but those kind of things really stood out to me.
Is there something your mom or dad said to you so far that you've kind of really held on to as maybe life advice or something that was encouraging to you?
In terms of life advice, my what I love about my parents is that even though I am the only child, they give me they ended up being my friends. You know, I never felt like they're my parents, especially my mother. I grew up being very fond of my father. I always thought that, oh, I'm daddy's little girl. But as I grew older, I realized I could share a lot more with my mom. So if there was a boy I liked in school, or if there was, there was an experience I had, I think I mustered the courage much more to speak to my mom than my dad. I think I was also a little scared of my dad. But that being said, I think both my parents were always said to me, Shweta, um, it's so important to uh, live and let live, and experience life as it comes. Never say no to anything, because when you say no, you don't realize the opportunities you're letting go. You know,
Hmm.
it's not always about the money. I mean, for me, I'm an educated woman. Like I did my degree in marketing and finance and psychology, and for me to give up my give up a very lucrative like a corporate opportunity where I could be making big bucks and following my passion, where there are days when you don't have a gig, and there are days when you're just sitting at home. It could be very seasonal as well. I was a little worried. My parents, of course, being from the culture, they were a little concerned, and that's why they asked me to get my education. But once I got my education, I had that degree in my hands. My parents were like, never say no to an opportunity, because sometimes it's not just about the money. It's more about, just going for that opportunity, because that can open so many more doors, you know. So like never say no. Basically, that was their biggest thing. Like, be a go-getter and just go for it and be confident.
Was there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity you passed down that you wish you hadn't?
Yeah, that did happen actually. It happened a few years ago when one of actually, it's kind of weird, because I don't know if I can say I passed down, or it was just not written in my destiny. I had like at that time, before Instagram was in the picture, I had a Facebook fan page, and I used to get a lot of fan mails on my Facebook, and in between all those fan mails, there's a lot of junk also, that like stuff that comes that's
Yeah.
not meaningful. And sometimes, and I'm not very good at doing paperwork, or monitoring my emails. I'm not very good at it. Always felt like I should have someone else do it for me. I'm not so good at this, and it's such a chore. Is the way I used to look at it. It was like it's such a headache. So I remember there was a time for about a month or two, I did not check my emails, my messages, my DMs on my Facebook fan page, and there was this guy on YouTube who at that time was planning to start a YouTube channel. It was basically where he would play the keyboard and I would sing. And that concept did not exist at that time. Like especially the idea that he had and how professionally he was doing it, something like that did not happen. People were recording videos from their own living room and stuff like that. But this guy had a whole production in his mind. Like they're going to
Oh,
take popular
wow.
songs, and you're going to be the singer, and I'm going to be the one playing the piano, and we're going to have like bi-weekly release. And he had a whole game plan. And I remember he messaged me, and for some reason, I saw that email, and then I got carried away by looking at other emails. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll get back to this." And I didn't get back to it. Like I completely forgot about it. It genuinely skipped my mind. It was not intentional. And 2 months later, like there were these videos coming out on YouTube where this particular individual was working with a different singer, a different female singer, because I think he also had a timeline. He probably
Right.
reached out to he probably reached out to a few singers and said, okay, let me see who's interested in something like this. So obviously, if I haven't responded, it means I'm probably not. It's right of him to think maybe I'm not interested. So he went ahead with another singer, and those videos became like it was both those, the singer and the composer, the pianist, they became household names all across the globe.
Oh, wow.
Like it reached millions of people, and the kind of opportunities that followed after that, was released on YouTube and social media was massive. And then I remember I remember I was just watching and I was like, oh, good for. The funny thing is I didn't connect the dots. I didn't realize that this is the person whose email I missed until my manager a few months later said, did you see this email? It came to you 6 months ago. And I saw the person's name and I saw the person on YouTube and I said, oh my God. I mean, of course, I finally did end up working with this individual. I did a song with him. But there's something in marketing I've learned. It's called first mover advantage, you know. And the singer who worked with him the first, she had that first mover advantage because
Right.
she he did like 20 or 30 covers with him. And everybody associated, whenever they saw this guy or this girl, they associated them together. So anybody
Right.
else who came after that were just guest artists, they were just
Mm.
making special appearances. So yes, I got love for that cover. I got the love I deserved that cover, but I could have been much. It could have been much bigger. It could have really changed my life to another level. Actually, it could have changed my career to a certain extent. So that's the opportunity that I always regret. I mean, the moral of the story, I guess, is always check your emails. Don't, and always reply right away. So it's a lesson learned. It's a bittersweet lesson, but it's okay. It's okay. Life throws experiences at you. This is what I believe. What's meant to be will be, and what, learn from it. It's okay.
What do you find that you really enjoy about life?
What I enjoy about life, if I may say this, is just meeting people from different backgrounds. That's the most beautiful thing of my. That's what I also think I enjoy with my career. I travel so much. Also, okay, one thing is when I grew up with my parents who were fond of traveling. That's one thing, of course. But my career also gave me the same kind of experiences because
Mm.
I, like, for example, the song that you really enjoy, the Piano Guys. When they reached out to me, it was massive. I mean, I think it was serendipity. Like I always say that. Like I still remember my manager was telling me about the Piano Guys, and a week later I got a random call from the Piano Guys, and it's not like my manager even spoke to them. It was serendipity. It was just meant to happen. It's like the universe was listening, and they just connected the two of us together. And I remember they calling me and saying, "Shweta, we want to work with you." And 10 days later, I was on a flight to Salt Lake City. I was in Utah, and I was in their studios recording a song with them. Then I went back again to shoot the video there as well in Utah. The music video was done there as well. So I think this is the beautiful thing I enjoy about life: meeting people, also meeting people from different backgrounds and different cultures. Because every person you meet, you learn something from them. Everyone's born in this world, and everyone experiences a different thing in life. No two people's experiences are the same. So I really think, and it's like a it's a learning curve for me. Like I learn from them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you make you're blessed sometimes because then you avoid making that mistake. They tell you something and then you think about it and you're like, oh, I would have done the same thing, but now because they told me like this is what they did and they learned from it. I'm fortunate, I'm blessed to have met them and learned something from them. So this is what I love about life.
What do you find hard?
About life, or is that okay? um what I find hard about life is how I would like to frame this is, I don't necessarily like it so much when people are not grateful. You know,
Mm.
I think gratitude is so important. It's very easy for us to complain, like, oh, life has not been fair to us, and be bitter about it. And I see that a lot. Um, and I
Yeah.
and I that's one thing I find when people are not grateful, when they don't show gratitude, that bothers me. And also in my field, especially, what I don't like is um, when there's a lot of unfair competition, you know, like I find that like it's not always fair. It's not always that the best talent wins. It's not always the best singer who gets a project, you know.
Yeah, very true.
It's a lot of other factors, like you have to please someone's please someone, or put someone on a pedestal, or really blow their ego. There's so many. So these things, when
Yeah,
ego is involved, lack of gratefulness is involved. It just it really turns me off. Actually, it really it puts me down. I don't like it so very much. That's the thing about life that really bothers me. I just feel like we all need to just express love, love and more love. As soon as we open room for hatred and unnecessary bickering and egos to come into play, that's where the downfall begins. You know, so that's what I feel.
how do you cultivate gratitude? Because even as an independent singer, and then as you've got the playback as well, it's like there's so many things where I guess for me, it would seem like you could be really discouraged. Like one day, maybe I've got this, the next day I don't have this. Or for instance, you miss the email. It's like, oh, I could have done this really big thing, didn't see that.
Yeah.
And for you, it is a lot of like grab the opportunity, go with it, see what happens. Maybe something happens, maybe something doesn't. How do you cultivate that gratitude, though your circumstances are changing a ton?
Beautiful question. It's much easier said than done. It's a very hard practice. But I have learned, especially over the past couple of years, what I do is I have a journal. I have a gratitude journal. So every day when I wake up in the morning, I write things that I'm thankful for, you know, because when I see what's happening in the world right now, we're living in a terrible, terrible time, you know,
Yeah,
kids, displaced homes, like their families are being attacked, the entire families are being wiped out. They don't know if they're going to get the next meal, where they're going to get their next meal from. you know so when I see all of that, I'm like, what are we bickering about? And that's when I said, what, how do I be, how can I be grateful? So it's funny, I spoke about this to a friend the other day. I said to her, whenever negative thoughts come to my mind, then
yeah,
I sit in, I go to a room and I lock the door and I say, cancel, cancel, cancel. I say it 3 times, I just say, please go away. I don't want any negative thoughts. Yes, life is hard, but life is hard for everybody, you know. Not everyone's born with a golden spoon. And even people that are born with a golden spoon, I'm sure they've at some point seen some hardships of some nature in their life. Some have it harder than the other. I agree. Um, but for me, I'm practicing this now just by waking up in the morning, and I look out of the window and I say, thank you, Lord, for another day, another beautiful day. I see the sunrise and I'm like, thank you, God, for another beautiful day. You know, I pen down my thoughts. I pen down that the fact that, yes, okay, I may not have a gig for the next 10 days, and I might feel like, oh, I'm feeling really stale. Like, why am I not doing a show? But you know
yeah,
what? When I go into the kitchen, I'm eating a beautiful meal, an oatmeal full of berries. I'm eating all the exotic fruits in the world one can think about. I don't have to think about my next meal, you know.
yeah,
So I don't have to think, like, where is it going to come from? Am I going to be able to, if I want to go out tonight and have a nice dinner, I can do it. So we can always compare ourselves to people that are above us. That's the problem that we humans face. You know, we always look at people above us and say, oh, look at how much they have, look at the level of wealth and
yeah.
money and magnificence and glam. But let's look at people below us, the lesser fortunate. And that's when we appreciate what we have, you know. So I do it by keeping a journal and writing down what I'm grateful for every single day.
Do you think, I was going to ask, because I know like when I have visited Ghana or just a country where poverty is something you can see much more vividly than here, because in DC, I mean, you're going to have the occasional, probably more than the occasional homeless man, but it's not the same type of poverty like in Ghana. People would have their house would basically be a shack that was also their business, and then maybe they had a corner where they had their cot and that's where they would sleep, or they didn't have anything to sleep. They just do the ground, or
Mm.
they didn't have shoes and they'd have to save money for a long time to get shoes. Or you'd see like, pregnant women who look like they're about to deliver a baby. Like here in America, it's like, okay, after 8 months they take off and they go and it's, they got a sick leave and all of this so that they can recoup. But then in Ghana, I mean, women were working up to the very day they'd have a baby. They'd walk and sew and do everything they could because they needed money. They couldn't just not do anything. Um, in India, do you find it because of where you live, though, you also get to see that probably a lot more vividly than I'd say a lot of Americans here. Um, so does that help in any way as well when you're thinking about gratitude or just seeing the people around you that there are so many people who really do struggle in a very physical level, whereas here in America that is a thing, but we don't ever see it really. It's kind of not talked about, it's kind of hidden away. It's just not really something that comes out.
Yeah, I see where your question is coming from. So to be honest with you, I don't see much of it either because I live in Dubai, and in
Okay.
Dubai you see that occasional home, like in America you probably see it a little more than Dubai. In Dubai, you like unless you go to certain areas, certain pockets here,
Okay.
you see one or two people like coming in like trying to ask you for money, which it's a very very rare sight. You know,
Okay.
the problem here, I mean, it's not a problem, I guess. The thing here is that opulence has taken over. Materialism has taken over. It's people with extremely big pockets, even from other countries in the world, now come to invest in Dubai. So uh, the kind of life I see here is great, but sometimes I question is it this is not really how the rest of the world is, and it's not very realistic. It's quite superficial to a large extent, you know. And then the question comes is, how much of this is authentic, you know,
Yeah.
because are people here because of all the opulences and the money? Like if all that had to be taken from them, how complete, how whole are they really? How complete are they really? You know, is it just the money that's tying everyone together because people of certain stratas are hanging out and partying every night? Is that what keeps them together? If one of those families, God forbid, had to see a bad day, would the rest of them come to their rescue? You know,
Right.
real relationships and real friendships are questioned. That's the kind of life I'm currently, kind of city I reside in. But to go back to your question, uh, I do go to India very often, and there the poverty and the stark difference between like the upper class and the poor, the slums, the poverty, it's quite prevalent. You do see it, and I agree with you. That's where the gratitude stems for me from, because what I do now is I have like, because of my occupation, and I guess I enjoy dressing up as well. I have a lot of clothes, a lot of clothes, a lot of accessories, and a lot of shoes, and this and that. So what I do is after I wear them a few times, I know that I probably won't wear this again. I actually make a bag. I've created a bag in which I put all of this, and I actually donate it. I actually go to organizations in India where I give it to them and make sure that it reaches people that need it, because they're
Yeah.
all in great condition, shoes in great condition, bags in great condition, and it will help someone. It will help the kids. It will help families that don't have the financial capacity to buy these things. So again, that's my way of being grateful. I'm like, okay, dear Lord, you've given it to me. There are people in this world who can't afford it. I've seen it. I've seen the slums. I've seen the poverty. It's
Right.
heartbreaking. Like I know, especially whenever I take a flight to Mumbai, whenever you land into Mumbai airport, you see the high-rise buildings and you see all of that, but you will never land into Mumbai airport without looking at the slums. It actually passes the slums when you land into at the Mumbai airport, and when you see that, it's like such an eye opener. It just hits you right there. It's like, oh my God, you know so there are people who have it worse than us. So a lot of times what I do is, when people, even in India, when people come to me begging for money, I find that instead of giving money to them, I always keep packets of food, cookies, like, I keep things on me, because I'm like, it's better I give them
Mm.
uh
Yeah.
you know tangible things that they can actually use, instead of me giving them money. And sometimes it could be used for the wrong reasons too. For all
Right.
they're they're buying alcohol or they're buying something else, you know. So and I totally get where you're coming from. Yes, it's difficult to have gratitude in this part of the world when you're only like surrounded by opulence, and sometimes you get carried away when you feel like everything is so hunky dory here and I'm so comfortable and settled. But I do have in my own family, I know, I've seen extended family who don't really have it all. And
Yeah.
when I go to their backgrounds, when I go to their homes, when I go to their cities in India, and I see what they're living with, and they're still happy, it's a reality check. It's a reality check, really.
What makes you, because um, what makes you live? Like, what do you find meaningful? Because you're talking about the fact that, like, looking for money, finding that as something that you have your stability in, or even your career. And these are things that you've even seen for yourself. They just don't stick around very long. Um, what does life mean to you? How do you cultivate joy? And what do you see as important in life that you live for?
Um, So for me, music is one. It gives me the most amount of joy. I think music is beautiful because it has a range of emotions. You're happy, you listen to music. You're sad, you listen to music. You want to dance, you listen to music, right? So music is what I live for. And then apart from that, it's my family. My family is everything for me. I think what brings the biggest smile on my face is, I don't know if you know this, but I have a 5-year-old son, and he's the joy of my life. I mean, I think when I see him say the most beautiful things, the most innocent things, the questions that he asks on a day-to-day basis, he listens to something, he learns something from somewhere, he watches television and he picks up something from there, and when he innocently comes and poses that question to me, you know, I'm just like, I could just live for this, forever. I don't want him to grow up. It's so beautiful. And then sometimes when he just for no reason, the unconditional love, I think with kids, the beautiful thing is they don't really expect anything in return. Of course, they want toys and everything. But apart from that, there are times when they'll see that you're having a bad day, or you're kind of not looking, very, you're looking stressed. And, just that question, mommy, are you okay? Like, why are you looking so stressed? And he'll come and give you a hug. He'll come and give you a little peck on your cheek or a little kiss on your cheek. It's the most beautiful thing. I think this is what I live for. I think I live for my family. I especially live for my son. He's the biggest joy in my world.
So, and I thank you so much for your time because I know we're almost up, but I wanted to ask you one more question. How would you encourage independent musicians? Because there are a lot. There's probably more independent musicians than there are actual big name musicians. Um, and many people who love music or are passionate about it want to be able to express that. Um, but it's discouraging being an independent artist because you're usually working a job as well as doing music because the music is not making your money yet. Um, so how would you encourage just people who are, trying to start up their own independent music, um, almost their own industry of their own by putting out the music they enjoy and trying to put it out on social media? Do you have any tips for them or an encouragement that you would give?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no like qualified. Like I know people see me as a professional singer, but there's no one set formula. But all I can say from my experiences, what helped me a lot is being brave and reaching out to other musicians and individual, like other singers, via social media.
Mm.
That's how independent music scene really took off for me. Like I remember the first two songs I did was my own singles, Gile and Ajuba. Those were composed, like I don't even know how that happened. I remember one night I was just sitting and writing these lyrics, and it all came together so beautifully. I think I had this you know, really creative streak going on that night. I had a show. I remember in Toronto. This was in Toronto. After post my concert, I came home and I didn't feel like sleeping, and I sat all night and wrote these lyrics. And then I found a producer in Toronto who was willing to work with me on the song. So it's all about not losing hope. I understand it's very difficult for independent musicians. You're not seeing that the returns right away. You're not seeing the money right away. You're not seeing not everyone will like the style of music that you create. I mean, you can't please everybody. Sometimes you have to be true. You have to stick to who you know you are, who you think you are. everybody has an identity through their music as well, and there's no harm in that, because sometimes there are certain genres that are not very mainstream. I know, like
Yeah.
for example, like pop genre can probably appeal to a much wider audience, but just because it appeals to a much wider audience, don't forget to tap into what your music sensibilities are, or where your strengths lie in music. Just because popular pop music is popular, I'm going to do it. It's not going to make you happy, and it's not going to reflect in your work either. So my advice to the to singers and musicians out there, independent artists out there, is first tap into what is it that you like to create.
Mm.
Where does your inspiration come from? A lot of times, we look outside for inspiration, but really in our life, there's so many stories that we can tell through our music. You know,
Mm.
of what we went through our childhood, what we went through our teenage years, what we went through. If you're married, what how that experience was. And you can just take a pen and paper and keep a book, write down all your thoughts. Someday you'll just open it and say, hey, I can just make a song with these lyrics. It's happened with me. That's one formula. The other one is, do not hesitate in contacting people on social media.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get a little intimidated. We go to certain social media profile and we see millions of followers and we see a blue tick mark, verified account. And, we're like, oh my God, they're not going to look at my message. They're not going to even know who I am. Why would they reply to me? My message will be lost in millions of messages. You never know. Just send that message, send your profile. If you're confident about yourself and your sound and your style and your talent, reach out to people. It's all about networking. I say the bottom line is network, 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 network. It's almost like telling people, be shameless. It's all right. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're not going to reply back to you. That's okay. At least you tried. So that's my advice to independent musicians and artists out there. And the last thing I would say is, don't imitate. Create your own style. We already have a Taylor Swift. We already have, in India, we have a Sonu Nigam. We have a Sunidhi Chauhan. These are Indian singers. In the Western world, we have we have Katy Perry. We've had a Taylor Swift. You've had Michael Jackson. Don't try to imitate. But what the world wants is something new, something fresh, originality. Try to tap into that and create something that's niche, and that will take you a long way as well. So don't lose hope. But it's good if the independent musicians are doing a side hustle, and they are doing music writing as well. I understand they need to pay the bills. It's understandable. But have faith in yourself. Totally have faith in yourself. That's what we need. We lose hope, we lose faith, and like that's where with the battle, like you kind of lost the battle, and you feel like you're going downhill. So just have that faith and believe in yourself.
Well, listeners, thank you again. And I've been speaking with Shweta Subram, who's a playback musician in Dubai in India. But at the same time, she's traveled all over and worked with a lot of different people. So I highly recommend looking up her music. But Shweta, thank you so much. It was such a gift to speak with you.
Thank you. It was so lovely. And you know what? I really have to say this, that I really enjoy your questions. They were so beautiful and so well thought of. A lot of times in all honesty, we kind of know what to expect in an interview. But with you, I think you pleasantly surprised me with such beautiful questions. I thoroughly
Ah,
enjoyed it. So
so
thank you so
glad.
much for it was a very one of a kind interview, I must say. It's very memorable, and I'm so glad you reached out to me and I agreed to do this. This has been truly a joyful experience.